All right, I'm Steve, and quick shop chat this week is about replacing spokes, but it's not really about replacing spokes. It's about when you bring your wheel in, if you have a spoke to be replaced, the variance in cost that could be tied to it. And this whole topic comes up because I was watching a YouTube video of there's various ones out there, but there's a couple that I really like to watch. They see what they had said. But I get very interested in the comments that come in. And a lot of times people make comments in YouTube videos that are very uninformed. But I noticed a comment that someone was replying to someone's YouTube video and then saying how their shop charged them like 72 bucks to replace a spoke or something. It was completely out of context. And I thought to myself, there's actually scenarios where it could cost that much to replace a spoke. But then there's also scenarios where it could be very cheap to replace a spoke. So I thought it would actually cover those too, because this is a totally different bike shop, but the bike shop owner responded to that person's comment with a, yeah, that stinks or something. And I thought, that's not the right answer. But anyway, so really cheap spoke replacements. For instance, if you were to bring in a front rim brake wheel, so this is like a 26-inch rim brake front wheel, so easy to replace a spoke on this. So even if the tire's still on it, let's say you broke your spoke like halfway up, and so the spoke nipple's still in the rim. I have spoke exposed out of the spoke nipple so that I can put a bend in it and turn it out of the spoke nipple, even if it's kind of, partially tight and seasoned there. If you brought this in and it's an old 26-inch rim brake front wheel, it's super easy to access a spoke. Pop it out of here. There's no brake rotor in the way. There's no cassette in the way. Those are things that get in the way of threading a new spoke. It'd take a few minutes, and assuming the rest of the wheel's not out of true, yeah, super easy. Spoke's gonna be a couple bucks, and we might only be 10 bucks to tighten the spoke down, and if the wheel doesn't need to be trued, we just let it go, done really quick. But so that's one scenario. Super simple, super fast, easy, not a big deal. However, now that we have disc brake wheels and tubeless setups, it can get more expensive to replace a spoke. So for instance, if you're on the rear wheel and there's scenarios where I might have to take both the rotor and the cassette off the hub to get the spoke threaded through. For instance, if it was this spoke here, just so that I can feed a new spoke in. We might be able to get the old one out, and then if you bring your wheel in and your cassette's pretty mucky and packed full of stuff, when we go to pull it off and the cogs, kind of come apart, if we don't clean it up and we just go sandwich it back together and smash that sand and whatever back in between the cogs, it's going to be an issue. So our rule of thumb is if we're pulling a cassette off, it's getting cleaned. So that's going to add cost. Even if you tell me don't clean it and you bring it in, it's clean, it's still time. We're pulling the cassette, setting it aside on the bench, pulling the rotor, setting it aside, threading your spoke, and then got to put that stuff back on. But that's not even all of it either. So if you bring us in a spoke that's broken, and it's broken like right off in at the spoke nipple, and the spoke nipple got lost into the rim, and let's say it's a tubeless setup, even if it's not a tubeless setup, we're still pulling your tire and your tube out to get that. And sometimes we can quickly get it to shake out of the valve hole, but there's a lot of times where if it's a carbon rim, it's issues because there's flashing inside of there, and that spoke nipple gets trapped. And there is a steel spoke that's part of it's broken in there, so sometimes we can get a magnet and kind of trace it out and get it to come out. But yeah, you could have it. You could end up with a pretty expensive spoke replacement if you bring in a bike that is a rear wheel disc, a tubeless setup, and we pop your bead off and your tape comes with it. And so now you're retaping a rim. and all those types of things. So it's some things to be cognizant of when you are bringing a wheel in for service like that, or even if it's true. So if you're trying to save some costs and you don't want to pay the shop, there's things you can do ahead of time. If you're handy, maybe you've got all the tools and you take care of your own tires and that type of thing. If you're gonna, and it's not just our shop, but if you're going to drop your wheel off at a shop, take your rotor off ahead of time, pull the cassette off, maybe take your tire tube out, that type of thing, so that the shop doesn't have to do it. Because if the shop has to do it, if it's our shop, we're going to charge you for that shop time. Because if we're not going to charge you for it, we would just move on to another service job. That's what keeps us moving and paying for our lights. So anyway, that's a quick one, quick shop chat this week. And Lynn stepped out because she's like, I don't, I don't need to hear stand there next to you talking about spoke replacements. So Lynn will be in the future ones. So anyway, any comments, hit it below, I'll answer them later.